Hi, this is Lucia with The Art of Love. I'm a dating and relationship expert specializing in helping you get your ex back. And welcome back, No Contact Army. That's the name I've decided to call my subscribers and viewers, since you are all in no contact fighting to get your ex back. So welcome, No Contact Army. Today I want to talk about whether you can get your ex back if you were in a short-term dating situation or relationship, meaning it was just a few weeks or a few months. And I have an email from a woman, so I'm going to go through the email and answer the questions and talk about short-term relationships and no contact. But before I do that, I want to remind you to be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. And also to be sure to check out my new book, No Contact Secrets, available at nocontactsecrets.com, where you can read 2 free chapters. All right, let's get started. She says, I dated someone for 3 weeks before things came crashing down. Yikes, that was fast. We messaged every single day, all day. And that was your first mistake. That's low-value behavior. Why are you messaging someone all day if you've only been dating them for 3 weeks? It looks like you don't have a life, or even if you do, you put so much importance on this person that you're willing to push it aside, and whatever things you may be busy with, you're willing to take your attention off of them and give it to him. So that was a mistake. She continues, we had 3 to 4 dates, great dates, everything was perfect until the last few days. We expressed our feelings that they were developing for each other and that we weren't seeing anyone else. Too soon. Another dating mistake right there that I talk about in my video, the top 3 dating mistakes. It's only 3 or 4 dates. Why are you already talking about feelings? And I don't care if the other person brings it up. Remember, anyone who's willing to rush in will be just as likely to rush out. So if after 3 or 4 dates someone says, oh, I really like you, you can say, well, you have great taste. With a wink and a smile. Okay? You don't have to be like, oh, I like you too. You don't. All right? So don't be afraid that, oh, I have to tell them that I like them too, otherwise they'll go away. Then I guess they didn't really like you if they go away because you didn't reciprocate. So you can't be operating from fear. Okay. So then she says, I flipped my lid because he was still carrying on friendships with other women. And so I asked for clarification, and she said 3 to 4 female friends he texts and calls a few times a week. So that sounds rather odd. Listen, it's possible they're just friends, but what guy is texting and calling female friends a few times a week? I mean, I have male friends. I'm not talking to them a few times a week. I may not even talk to them a few times a month. And he's got several of them. As I said, it's possible, but I would be suspicious. But the fact is that he had asked her to not see anyone else 2 weeks in. Way too early. And if you hadn't agreed to exclusivity 2 weeks in, then at week 3 you wouldn't have flipped out if you had waited and done due diligence, as businesses do. They don't just rush in and buy something, invest in something without finding out what is really going on with this business or with this property. And that's why you don't want to make a commitment too soon, 2 weeks in. Because you want to find out who you're dealing with. At 2 weeks or even 3 weeks, you don't know. You have to find out what's going on. And that way, when you did find out about these quote-unquote female friends at 3 weeks, if you weren't exclusive, then you could have just asked some questions and like, oh, what's going on with that? Who are they? Whatever. And try to find out what was really going on there. But because you had already agreed to be exclusive, and by the way, exclusivity is the most important thing that you as a woman have to offer. It's no longer sex, and you don't just hand over your exclusivity on a silver platter after 2 weeks. Again, that's more low-value behavior. You have to be more discerning and find out who you're dealing with. So that was another mistake that, of course, led to things progressing, as you'll see in a minute. But you got to know who you're dealing with before you agreed to be exclusive. And she says that she agreed to be exclusive because she'd known him since childhood. But here's the thing, knowing someone and dating them is not the same thing. Okay? Just because you know someone since childhood, it doesn't mean you know what they're like to date, what they're like in a relationship or in a dating situation. So she says, I apologized for the way I handled it. That's good. But here's the problem. You're still someone who has the personality or attachment style of someone who's going to flip out after 3 weeks. Not everyone would have handled it that way, but that's who you are right now. And so even if you apologize, the fact is that's who you are. Like the best example I can give is someone was dating this woman, and she talked too much. Like she would talk about her, cousin's nephew's sister's dog. Things that really were not important. And he finally broke up with her for that reason, even though he was happy about all the other aspects of their relationship. And I said, well, why didn't you just tell her that she talked too much? And he said, because that's who she is. And I thought, you know what? He's right. That's who she is. It's like now she would have to shut up when she was around him, and that would not have been who she was. So if this is who you are, that you're going to flip out, then, well, you'll see what I mean. You'll see what I mean as I continue on, okay? But apologizing is great, but you were just being yourself. And she said he was accepting. Okay. He told me I needed to trust him, that this would work. The next night, Friday, I had sex with him for the first time. I have a fear of being dumped when that happens. Okay, huge red flag. Often we cause things to happen because of our fears. We're afraid that something's going to happen, and then what do you know? We manifest it. It does happen. And if it's happened in the past, I'm sure it's happened in the past, because otherwise why would you be afraid of being dumped after having sex if it's not happened one or more times in the past? And if it did, it was for one of two reasons. Either you were really bad in bed, which I doubt, or you behaved differently after having sex. That's often why men stop seeing someone after having sex. Women think, oh, he just wanted sex and then he left. No, you started becoming needy and possessive and insecure after the sex, and they were like, okay, I didn't sign up for this, and they're out. And maybe that's what happened with you. I'm thinking possibly because of the way that you reacted to the news of the 3 women. Okay, continuing on. Well, Saturday was normal communication. Then Sunday, nearly the whole day went by without hearing from him. I reached out and he continued being weird. He was ignoring my messages while sitting on social media. Another mistake. What do you mean messages? You don't send messages. You don't double text and triple text. You send one message and then you wait. As long as it takes, even if it's weeks. Okay? But I'm starting to understand your personality and attachment style. Someone like that is not going to be able to do that. She said, the next day he messaged first thing in the morning and I responded with, oh, so you want to talk to me today? He hatefully responded that he was spending time with his kid and dad for Father's Day. He has his kid every day and eats dinner with his dad multiple times a week. A 5-second text wouldn't have killed him. You're right, but I don't know how many texts you sent, what you said in the texts, and if he was already starting to be turned off because of the way you flipped out, as you said, over the friends, and now you're flipping out on Father's Day, then he probably just didn't want to deal with you. Possibly. That's one explanation, because I don't know what you said in the texts. Anyway, opened the message and I never responded. He has not spoken to me either. I'm most certain I'm much different than anyone he's ever dated, as in standards, looks, and class. Well, standards, looks, and class are great, but nobody wants someone with a needy, insecure attachment style. So unfortunately, your standards, looks, and class are not going to save you. And I'm sorry, but it's not classy, some of these moves that you made. someone that's classy is not going to flip out. They're going to find a nice way to address it, but they're not going to flip out when they find out about the women. And they're not going to send multiple messages. So I think we have a different definition of class here. I do think that he's already seeing someone in less than a week. Well, do you know that for sure? We don't know that. Will no contact work on this situation give the length of the relationship and the drama in the last few days and the fact that he's probably talking to someone else? Again, we don't know that. So to answer your question, it depends on his interest level, because interest level trumps everything. But let's look at some things that might be a factor. So he has a kid, he's divorced or has a baby mama, and if they're not together, that means there was a breakup, which means there was probably drama. So it really depends on his tolerance level for drama. If it's low, then that's generally going to lower his interest level, and he won't want to get back together because he's already had enough drama with the baby mama or the wife, and he's like, all right, I'm not getting into this, and he's choosing to cut it off right away. Now, this isn't really a long-term relationship since you've known each other for a year. So luckily for you, you've got that advantage going for you, as opposed to if he was a complete stranger and all this happened in 3 weeks, that would have been worse. But since he's known you, he may be willing to give you a pass. Also, in short-term relationships, there isn't a lot of water under the bridge in a few months or a few weeks of dating. So there aren't a lot of bad memories. And there's usually a lot of hope for what the relationship could be down the road. So in a short-term relationship, you have that working for you. So I think there's a good chance of hearing back from him. I'm glad you didn't respond to that last text. But you have to stay in no contact. And in the meantime, you need to work on yourself. And I would suggest some short-term therapy, probably cognitive behavioral therapy. Because otherwise, even if you do get back together, you're going to get triggered by something else. You're not going to be able to control yourself, and you're going to, as you say, flip out again. So you may be able to get him back once, but it will be more difficult to get him back a second time if he gives you a second chance. Now, I also have a comment from YouTube here about someone talking about short-term relationships. And they said, I always thought people who mourned short-term relationships were silly. However, now I've been mourning one myself for more than 7 months, and there's no hope of him coming back. This mourning has gone on longer than the length of mourning I did for the long-term boyfriend I had, and it's driving me insane. He certainly did something to me because I could be a whole different person with him, and I lost him. And I responded with, well, it's not the length of the relationship. It's the intensity. Each person we encounter unlocks a different part of us, and it looks like he unlocked something significant. And she said, true, unfortunately, from my broken heart. So in terms of short-term relationships, it's about interest level, and it's about the intensity. So you could have a very intense few weeks or few months with someone, as this girl in the comment did, and want to get back with them. It just depends on how much of a connection you were able to make in a short period of time, and whether they filled a void in you that you may not even have known that you had until you met them, or they unlocked a part of you, or you unlocked a part of them that they didn't know was there. So it's not about the length, luckily. So there is hope. So if you would like my help personally to get your ex back, you can contact me at theartoflove.net. The direct link is below. If you're listening to this on YouTube, remember to like, subscribe, and share. If you're listening on iTunes, I would appreciate if you would rate and review the podcast. And in the meantime, remember that love inspires, empowers, uplifts, and enlightens.